quickly, John. And this is meant to be interactive. So if you have thoughts, questions, concerns, if you worked on these campaigns, if you just have any input, we would love to hear from you. So please let us know in all of our social media channels in which this is live streaming. That is Facebook Live, I think LinkedIn Live, Instagram Live, and Zoom. So if you're joining us on Zoom, throw it into the chat. All our other social media channels, please put it in the comments. We would love to see what you've got to say or hear your comments or answer your questions. All right. So, and you can do that in real time as I'm talking, so that way you don't forget at the end. And we'll have a little Q&A at the end. All right. So, digital experiences, right? Like I said, this has become a language with which we're all very familiar at this point, but as technology has kind of become the saving grace for socializing in the past year and a half during the pandemic, right? Digital experiences have essentially immersed as this source of inspiration for brands and consumers alike. And interactive content is basically the next logical step for brands in this sort of landscape, right? And today's consumers really want to be able to kind of flow effortlessly between digital and physical channels, right? And that's particularly with younger people. Between 70 to 80% of millennials and Gen Z, which are people under the age of 35, and people under the age, Gen Z is generally people under the age of 20. They're active gamers, right? Between 70 to 80%. That is a huge demographic, huge number of people. And because the lines have become so blurred between online and offline, the virtual world has become just as important as the physical one, right? And we've probably heard of the phygital world, right? The physical digital world. That's becoming a landscape in which all of our brands are starting to expand, right? And we've seen this through the migration of habits and needs of consumers, particularly during the pandemic. Now, consumers are always sort of seeking these sort of expressions of their in real life values, right? Their style, their aspirations through things like avatars, right? If you're an avid texter, you probably have a Bitmoji, right? That is a virtual representation of who you are in a sort of comic book kind of sense, right? And this experiment, like these become new modes of expression in the virtual worlds, right? Bitmojis are a great example on iOS platforms. There's many other examples as well, but the online realm is the space where consumers seek to be immersed in these like new and interactive worlds. And people don't just want to watch things anymore. They actually want to actively participate in consuming them and even co-create them, right? So let's take a look at some brands that are really doing that beautifully in this arena. So the first one is Alexander McQueen. And we've seen great examples of how brands have really mobilized their communities with education, with entertainment, and all other forms of support. But Alexander McQueen began to start to ask their fans and their followers on a weekly basis to create these series of creative projects online. The first of these challenges was to sketch a dress for the winter collection, with the results being a creative process and owning or creating a label on Instagram of hashtag McQueen creators, right? This was a really creative way for Alexander McQueen to source user-generated content and collaborate with talent remotely while also promoting their brand recognition, right? So very important that they sort of hit those big facets and were able to fuse the fact that we didn't have runway presentations, we didn't have couture presentations, right? And really crowdsource and mobilize their community in a really fast and smart way. For Balmain, very similarly, they created the hashtag Balmain Ensemble, and brands are really recognizing that they are just as much content creators as they are producers of products. And that's very important, right? The House of Balmain created hashtag Balmain Ensemble, which aimed to publish stories, inspirations, and all kinds of creations from members of the Balmain family, as well as hosts of close friends and families, or family and friends of the house, right? Respected artists within the Balmain community. And this was a really eclectic aggregation of artistry in several different disciplines, right? Which Balmain not only got to promote and showcase, but they also got to feature to a much wider audience than that particular artist may have been privy to in the past. So Bottega Veneta. Bottega is, they created something called their virtual residency as a community for creatives during the quarantine, during the better part of 2020 into 2021. And this was to promote creativity and collaboration. This is a word we hear very often when we talk about digital things, right? Collaborations between different brands, between different communities, right? And Bottega launched their Bottega Residency, which is a space that allowed creative talent around the world to sort of be together in one virtual space. They had guests that ranged from musicians to creative directors to film directors, writers, designers, chefs. Essentially, what they built was virtual theater for audiences to tune into. And this is really important because, again, branding should tell a linear story. We should always be able to follow a story. And in working this way, you've now built this theatrical experience that feels very cinematic. Over at Jacquemus, whoops, let me switch. There we go. Jacquemus, their Instagram, at the image in the bottom center that you see of a child standing on an orange and a lemon, they featured this photo on their Instagram page, and this was a sort of an homage, a cheeky homage to their Portofino mismatched heels, but instead of the shoes, the child is simply standing on releve in an orange and a lemon, right? This particular post got over 120,000 likes and comments on the Jacquemus Instagram page, and many of the followers began imitating this image and posting their own sort of makeshift versions of it, which you can see directly above the original image. People using food, people using all kinds of doodads that they had within their home, right? Not only did this create like a sense of community, but Jacquemus actually started resharing and regramming these photos with the hashtag Jacquemus at home to coincide with their collection that was coming out. And it was something that they called and created the hashtag Jacquemus at home challenge. Now, you've probably heard the word challenge, but challenge in the context of the social media realm is this call to action, right, on social media platforms. Oftentimes it can lead to viral content, right? This is exactly how so many young Gen Z kids rose to TikTok fame so quickly, was through TikTok challenges. But it's a very successful way to leverage the social media attention economy, and it's exactly what brands are after. And a challenge is a really, really fast way to do that. So for Jacquemus, this worked out really well. On over to Balenciaga. So Balenciaga's Afterworld, the Age of Tomorrow. Now, Balenciaga unveiled their Autumn-Winter 2021 collection through this interactive online video game. They launched it last December. It was called Afterworld, the Age of Tomorrow, and it allowed users to play for free via their web browser. So now they're doing the very smart task of aggregating people to their traffic, right? Or creating traffic to their website. And the theme of the collection being human destiny, Balenciaga took the user of the gamer on a journey of 2031, which allowed gamers to navigate a virtual reality with characters dressed from head to toe in the collection and in the collection itself. Now, RPGs, if you're not familiar, role-playing games, right, in the video game world, they are generally the most popular of game types in the gaming world, and this really gave Balenciaga a moment to explore this language that gamers are already fluent in, right? So we're seeing more and more luxury houses collaborate with gaming brands, whether that's Sony, Nintendo, Roblox, because of the sort of cross-pollination of these two industries. Over at Gucci showcased their collections by highlighting different works of emerging designers through something that they called their digital film festival. And this allowed Gucci to really experiment on more of their conceptual marketing, which they are so good at, right? Alessandro Michele at Gucci is doing a really good job of reinventing the brand while honoring the brand's heritage. And it gave them this very cinematic appeal, which when you think of Gucci in present day, that is one of their core identifiers as a house, is their cinematic appeal and how they almost feel like an art house as opposed to a fashion house. For Salvatore Ferragamo, they launched something called Trivia, which is pretty much exactly what it sounds like if you're familiar with trivia, right? Some people are self-proclaimed great at trivia, others sort of shy away from it. But what was particularly engaging about Salvatore Ferragamo's trivia is that it was aimed at sharing the message to like never give up, right? Transcending physical barriers, telling stories of the brand through their social media, their Instagram channels, their Facebook channels. Their trivia also included quizzes and anecdotes that allowed everybody to sort of discover their past, their iconic products, and significant moments from Salvatore Ferragamo's actual life, the founder. This was a really clever way to infuse brand education and history to consumers in a quick and really palatable way, right? Oftentimes on social media channels, we don't digest articles, right? We'll digest a caption, 140 characters or less, and a trivia statistic or a trivia fact is a perfect way to absorb information quickly that will stay with you and leave a lasting impression. Another really smart thing that Gucci did this year was the Gucci Archetypes, right? The Gucci Garden experience was a collaboration with Roblox, and it divided the virtual experience into separate rooms. So these themed interactive rooms, visitors immersed themselves into the creative vision of Alessandro Michele with all of the Gucci inspirations. As you entered, you would create an avatar, which would then become a very neutral mannequin. The mannequin is not gendered, the mannequin is not aged, and the mannequin is meant to sort of symbolize that we all begin our journeys through the same life as a blank canvas, right? You wander through different rooms and have different virtual experiences. With each experience that your avatar has, it absorbs an element from the exhibition, and with every person experiencing rooms in different orders and retaining sort of different fragments of the spaces and the experiences themselves, you essentially emerge your avatar in one-of-a-kind creations which reflect the idea of individuals, right? And while fashion and art kind of feels a little out of reach, right, what they've done at Gucci with Roblox is create this variation of a metaverse, right? And the metaverse is very, very appealing, particularly in an era like 2020 into early 2021 when we couldn't travel. People wanted to escape. This is also why the gaming industry is so large, right? It's escapism, right? So a very successful collaboration between Roblox and Gucci for the Archetypes. Over at Christian Louboutin, they rebuilt their entire Louboutin Red world into a virtual universe, replacing all of the sort of physical representations of their storefronts and of their pop-up shops and taking it into a digital and interactive experience. This was hosted by Korean gaming platform Zepeto. Again, the first thing they ask you to do is create an avatar or a persona for yourself, which you can style in all of the Louboutin accessories. You then virtually join Monsieur Louboutin himself in a tour around Paris and all of his favorite spots. Now, this partnership between Louboutin and Zepeto sold over 150,000 virtual items and saw over 800,000 in-game photo booth user-generated content produced and shared on social media platforms from Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, etc. Something else that we're starting to see between digital, virtual, and in-person being fused together is this idea of togetherness and this idea of a sort of red table talk, if you will, right? People really want to hear from the creatives behind the brands. They really want to feel like there's a person behind the label that they are purchasing. Over at Versace, Donatella Versace teamed up with Amy Paris and Ted Baker. They've all hosted their own clubhouses. If you're not familiar, Clubhouse is an audio app in which you can set up a room, and essentially it is a talking platform, not unsimilar to what you would see as, for example, a panel at like a Comic-Con. So the platform is very sort of versatile. You can ask questions, there's Q&A, it's very interactive, and it makes you physically feel like you're within the same space as, you know, these very A-list celebrities, for lack of a better word, or creative directors as they're speaking about their collections. Or it also creates a sense of intimacy, right? Which is something that people were craving. Clubhouse's platform is ad-free and it's in real time. But again, valuing togetherness is something that we're seeing, right? Virtually and both in person. Burberry was the first luxury brand to partner with Twitch. Twitch is the world's leading live streaming platform for gamers, and they use that to showcase their spring-summer 2021 collection. Something else that Bottega Veneta did more recently than the Residency was venturing into sort of a digital journey space to launch something that they call Issue Magazine. Now, we've seen, of course, a huge uptick in virtual lookbooks during the pandemic, right? Fashion Week was canceled. Fashion Month has completely shifted. Brands have rethought how they're presenting product to consumers and to buyers and to audiences and mainstream media. And a lot of that is a sort of rebranding. If you go on a lot of brand social media pages, they're sort of there's a lot of messaging saying, you know, we'll be back, we're taking a break, right? But Bottega took it to sort of the next step because they disappeared from all of social media. They had a social media blackout at the beginning of the year, and it turned like the industry upside down. Everyone was wondering what they were doing. You know, they deleted all of their social media channels, and this was a very clear choice that they chose to sign off of all of their social media platforms. It was not simply a PR stunt, but it was very much a precursor to their sort of new digital venture into the streamlining of their online platforms and their audience, particularly to this Issue magazine, digital magazine, as well as their website. So they're no longer, at this moment anyway, interested in giving any of their likes or views to platforms like Instagram or TikTok, but rather focusing on their own, which is, in my opinion, pretty smart. For Loewe, the Loewe Foundation Craft Prize digital exhibition is now open. Of course, most museums worldwide during the pandemic were closed, so we didn't have access to, you know, to see pieces of art, see pieces of history, right? So the Loewe Foundation created that. They created, they showcased this immersive virtual space that recreated the interior of the Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Paris, and they invited you to sort of explore the shortlisted pieces of this year's 3D renderings. So while that's of course what is so magical about a museum experience is that you are potentially standing in front of, you know, civilization's old pieces of history, but if you cannot get to your favorite museum or your favorite city, you can now experience that in the virtual world. And these works were modeled in 3D. They were experienced in high definition, so you could really see the works of art close up through filming and augmented reality, and it also allowed visitors to bring each piece into their home through a smartphone. So you could take a 3D rendering of that piece with you and have it permanently. And finally, let's take a look at Coach. So Coach brought consumers to this new experience with their Signature City, their version of a sort of fun Coach video game on Tmall. This was to celebrate their signature Jacquard collection, and Coach released their game called Signature City on Tmall. If you're not familiar with Tmall, it's Alibaba Group's dedicated platform for luxury and premium brands, so it is quite big on the continent of Asia, particularly in China. The musical Coach Cityscape was full of dancing little Rexies. You can see them on the right in pink, green, and yellow. Between New York City's landscape and Shanghai, all of their iconic elements in New York City, you could see the subway, the New York City benches, fire escapes, all present within the virtual space. And the experience sits on the Tmall floor. It offered visitors a month-long game where they could accrue points each day that they came back. So this is gamification at its best, right? Not only engaging with consumers in a physical and a digital way, but also classic gamification in the sense of incentive base, right? Come back, keep playing the game, garner points. You can earn points, and you can leverage those towards future coach collections and future coach purchases. So gamification is really, really big with young people, obviously in the sense of Animal Crossing and traditional gaming, but also in the sense of reward-based shopping, right? So that does it for us for our fantastic examples. I'd like to thank Raul Tovar and Nicole Simi, our beautiful creative team, who built out all of this fantastic imagery. It is all available currently right now on our Windows World channel. If you go to Trends, it is at the top of the page. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the beginning, and if anyone has any questions, you are more than welcome to ask now. Where do we have, all right, while you're getting warmed up potentially, where's everyone visiting from? I know we have a lot of educators here. Any, what schools are represented today? You could put it in the chat if you want, if you're feeling a little shy.
We've got an intimate group here, so we encourage who's on the call to, it'd be great to just, introduce yourselves, where you're calling from.
Oh, thanks, Amy from Columbia College in Chicago. Fantastic. Thanks for being with us. And thank you for all for being with us across all of our different social media channels. I know I'm speaking exclusively to our Zoom audience, but I know that we have them across all of our platforms. So thank you so much for joining. If we don't have any questions, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Again, all of this particular brand presentation and all of our trend reports can always be found on windowswear.com on our trends channel. This one is directly at the top, and all of the information shared today can be found on our website. So please feel free to have a look-see if you'd like more information, or if you'd like to revisit this. Thank you so much for joining us.